Okay.
All right. Thank you for joining us on Fate Points, show where we talk about all things fate. I'm Jake, and today we have Richard Bellingham as our guest.
Hello.
And Richard, why don't you just tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, that's a difficult question. Probably the most boring subject as far as I'm concerned. But yes, I am from England, as you can probably tell. I have been involved in Fate for a little while now, ever since the Fate Core Kickstarter was launched, and I sort of became addicted to the rules of Fate. As for me personally, I am a geek through and through. I have a degree in microbiology, another one in computer science. I've done a few different jobs, but I currently work as an insurance broker for my sins, which is not something I ever saw myself doing when I was at university. But life has a strange way of taking us down strange paths. But I keep myself sane by writing role-playing games and running games and doing all things geeky.
And you've recently, well, within the last year, you put out a game called The Secrets of Cats for Fate Core for Evil Hat Publishing. So I mean, you're official now, right?
Yeah, that's right. It was quite an experience, to be honest with you. I've always dabbled with writing my own stuff and tinkering with systems. I mean, I've been a long time White Wolf role player for the most part, so I've always been the GM rather than the player. So there's always been a lot of house rules. I've had lots of documents detailing all my changes to the systems that I've been running. But Evil Hat put out their Fate search a while back, and I submitted my entry for it, and it was a very, very exciting process. I didn't really think that anything would come of it because you never do when going in for these sorts of things. But fortunately, they liked what I had to contribute, and they asked me to write one of these Fate worlds for them, and it was a wonderful experience.
Well, that's great. I too sent in one, but I will give them credit on their denial. They actually gave me lots of really great feedback, so it was still a good experience overall. So I'm
Yeah,
glad I wasn't the only one who had a good experience, although you obviously had a more successful good experience.
I had a
Um,
friend who also submitted an entry for it, and unfortunately he didn't make it through either, which was, that caused a little bit of awkwardness, maybe, because there's an element of jealousy there. But I think at the end of the day, they had an awful lot of submissions, and I don't know what it is exactly that determined the ones that went through from the ones that maybe didn't quite make it. I know that I get the feeling mine was maybe a borderline entry because they gave me the opportunity to refine a few things over a few emails, so I don't know. How
so
close to the
you
one
got
I
a
was.
call back basically where it was like, hey, could you do that
Yeah,
again? But I think there's something there.
yeah. Essentially, yeah. The process was. I think maybe I was a bit. I had this thing where I wanted to just do it and send it because I felt if I took ages deliberating over it and second guessing myself and trying to make it as perfect as I possibly could, then there was a real chance I never would have sent it in. So my very first attempt, I think, was made within 2 or 3 days of the call going out, and I just basically wrote it. I gave it a good edit and as best I could, but I didn't want to tinker with it endlessly, so I sent it in. But I think maybe I was a bit faster because the first request for Evil Hat said, take a look at this. Here is our commentary. We think there's something here. We need you to refine it a bit. Please don't rush to send back the edited version. Take a bit of time to look at it and make sure that you're really happy with it before you send it back. And they gave me a not a deadline. They gave me a what's the opposite of a deadline? They said don't call us within a week or worse to that effect. So that was quite difficult because that was where I really started to the whole decision paralysis thing set in, and it was like I just edited individual sentences because there were fairly strict word limits, so it's just polishing and changing and hacking around these bits over and over again until the deadline was or the anti-deadline was up and I could send it back to them. And then after that, there were a few even more comments on one of the elements. So they seemed happy with the rest of it, but they just wanted minor tweaks to get it to where they thought it could be. So it was quite a nerve-wracking experience, but very it was very similar actually to the work on Secrets of Cats. Getting that developed was quite similar to the back and forth that I had in the trial period, so to speak. So I think it was quite valuable from that perspective.
So let's talk about the Secrets of Cats. Give us the pitch. What is the 25 words or less selling slogan, I guess?
Well, the simplest pitch I can give it is a reference to something else, which is to say it's essentially Hunter the Vigil or Hunter the Reckoning from the White Wolf games, but with cats. So that relies on people knowing what Hunter is. But yeah, so the other way you could look at it is it's supernatural, where the Winchesters are cats. That's another good way to think about it.
I now have to play Sam or Dean as a cat. That's in the cards now for the future. Why cats? What drew you to that? I mean, it's not an immediate jump, at least not in my head. So kind of walk us
Okay,
through the process.
I can give you the full thought process actually, because the brief was to send pictures, and I haven't got the exact wording here, but Fred said send us pictures that the internet will go nuts for, or words to that effect. But they don't have to be like mainline stuff that's really obvious. It can be niche things. We can be a bit experimental with this project because there's so many people writing these fake worlds, and they're already funded through the Patreon, so we've got the space to be really experimental and do some things that haven't been done before, or as it later turned out, that have been done before, but tackled in a slightly different way. So I was looking around for sources of inspiration, as you do, looking around the room, and I've got this old teddy bear in my bedroom that I've had ever since I was a small child. And I was thinking, okay, so what if the players were like toys that are animated of a nighttime and sort of work to protect their owners from the things that are out there, which are horrible, nasty threats. And I think my logical process from there was the first element was, well, I thought that's a bit Toy Story, it's kind of been done before, so maybe if I could do something a bit more original. But then I also thought it has to be something that the internet will go nuts for, and I thought, well, what does the internet go nuts for? There's what's all over the internet. What can you see on every meme, every website? And its obvious answer is cats. There are a lot of die-hard cat fans out there, and so yeah, it jumped from being teddy bears and toys to being cats, and I went from there. It later turned out that somebody else had already written a game, basically using the similar premise of people protecting their humans, as in cats protecting their humans. John Wick had written a game just called Cat,
Right.
which I hadn't previously heard of.
I think I've actually played that now that you mention it, but I'd forgotten about it.
Well, that's one of the good things about this, the process. It was pointed out to me fairly early on in the pitch that Cat existed, and I said, "Oh, well, if you want me to do something else because that's already out there, then fine." Obviously, I didn't mean to step on anyone's toes. But Evil Hat said, "Well, there's nothing to stop us from tackling a similar subject matter from our own perspective. So, why not do this and see where you go with it?" So, I deliberately didn't look at Cat to make sure that there were no, subconscious piracy, if you like. There was no accidental lifting of ideas directly from Cat, but just because we're tapping into the same material, there did end up being a few similarities. But I think the good thing is when we finally had the Secrets of Cats ready, we added some references in the book to various inspirations, including T.S. Eliot's Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, and Neil Gaiman's The Price, and Stephen King's Cat's Eye. And we also added a reference to other works that are of a similar nature, including Cthulhu and obviously John Wick's Cat. And then we also had a bundle of holding with Cthulhu, and I think Cat was in there as well. So I think just for a little while, this has been the year of the Cat RPG. There was a bit of a renaissance of cats in the RPG sphere. So,
well, yeah, that is quite a story. All right, so let's talk about the creation of it then. What were some of your biggest hurdles? I mean, obviously the writing itself could be a hurdle, but what were the surprising hurdles, I guess, or the things you didn't really expect that came up?
Okay. Well, the writing was pretty easy in a way. It just all seemed to flow quite well from the premise. So it was really interesting. I deliberately set out to make cat actions appear to have a purpose. So I wanted to ground it in mythology and in real cat behavior. So it's very important to me that cats in the Secrets of Cats behave like real cats, but they have other motivations for doing so. And from what everyone's told me, I think that's come across really well. So the writing in itself was fine, but it was things like getting used to the process of working with the evil hat guys, getting used to the timelines and the process, because obviously it's for me, right. This is a huge thing for me. It's the top of my agenda. It's taking up huge amounts of my free time, and obviously I couldn't expect the Evil Hat guys to respond within the timescales that perhaps I might have wished because they were busy with other things, and this is only one small element of what they're doing. So I think maybe I became a bit of a pest in a sense and was bugging them for feedback within the timescales that were a bit unreasonable. So I think that was the tough part for me, was taking it, going from being a fanboy to being a colleague of Evil Hat and actually trying to get used to the workflow and the timescales that are involved in that. But it was a valuable experience. Hopefully next time I work with them, that will go easier from the off, and I won't feel like I'm being a pest all the time.
All right, and what were some of the surprising, I guess, good things? Some of the happy accidents or clever twists that occurred to you only later and wouldn't have occurred to you at the beginning, and things like that. What were the?
I can't really think of any clever twists that turned up later down the line, but I do remember being pleased when we were discussing these things, and everyone seemed to be sort of enjoying because at first a lot of people were like, I'm a bit skeptical about the whole cat thing, but everybody seemed to get quite into the concept. And there were some issues where people were a bit concerned that maybe the tone was a little too dark with cats doing like animal sacrifices to commit their magical acts, etc. But one of the things that everyone has said in the feedback, and I think it's a great thing that Evil Hat let me run with this, because they could have easily said, well, we want it to be a bit more family friendly, let's tone that down a bit. But through discussions, they said no, we're fine. We can stick with the dark tone. It is appropriate to the cats, if nothing else. And they let me run with that, and I think that faith was borne out. So I think that was the good thing. It was the feeling that Evil Hat was sort of trusting me, as it were, to create this, and they gave me enough rope to run with it, and they gave me the backup and the support that I needed. But it wasn't like a dictatorial process. It very much felt like a collaboration rather than it being these massively established juggernauts of gaming that were telling me how to do it, if that makes sense. So that was really nice.
Okay, and so let's talk about the game itself. What sets it apart from other Fate games or settings mechanically? Because a lot of times with Fate, you want to get to the okay, what makes this feel different than other games? Because anybody can do any setting, but what draws the setting and the mechanics together?
Yeah, okay. I think the two things really that make it, a lot of it's not necessarily in the mechanics, but it's in the perspective. In that, yes, they're just characters like any other character in any other game, but because they are animals and it's written purely from the perspective of being animals, including advice on like how cats perceive the world and so on. It's a sort of game you look at with slightly different eyes, and I'm finding that personally, every time I look at a cat video on the internet or a news story about dogs tearing apart cars or anything like that, I find myself thinking of the stuff that's in The Secrets of Cats and sort of giving the real life events a spin based on The Secrets of Cats. And I think it's not just me. I think there are other people that have been quite into the book that are feeling a similar sort of paradigm shift. Not paradigm shift, that's a bit of a highfalutin way of putting it, but that they are finding that it's
highfalutin. We all wear monocles here.
Okay, all right. It is a filter which people are using to look at the world, and that's quite a special thing to me. And it was entirely what I set out to do. To show the actions of animals in a different light. So that's really pleasing. But I think mechanically, the thing that separates it from from other Fate worlds and from other Fate games in general, the skills are basically all the same. But I have this set of new magical skills and magic stunts which cats can use in particular. But it's also a fairly broad magical system that you could use in any other game as well. So I was quite keen to make sure that it was a flexible system that could be used more widely than in The Secrets of Cats, because I know that some people out there wouldn't be interested in playing cats. So I think that's the one. It's a fairly unique magic system. I haven't seen anything quite like it in any other Fate product.
So are you saying that I could use it to run a supernatural game where we all play actual Sam and Dean?
Yeah, absolutely. you certainly could. The magic is quite ritualized. I'm not saying they'll go around sacrificing mice and rats to do their magic, but it's, you can take the basic framework. You've got pretty standard, well, not standard, but fairly common power tropes in there, such as foretelling the future and finding things and going into people's dreams and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's more broadly applicable. Yeah.
Right, and so so this game has been out for a little while. It's had a fairly big stir actually in the community, especially when it first came out. I think you were the first of the Fate Worlds to come out.
I was the second after Venture City Stories, which was out for a bit before.
Right. I keep forgetting that was part of that whole thing, because that, to me, in my head, I connect it differently. But okay, so you were the second one to come out, and I remember it came out, and there was this big to-do, and people are still talking about it, and it's a platinum bestseller on drive-thru and all of that. So
yeah, I'm massively pleased about that, and I must admit I keep checking back because obviously it's my first game. I'm very invested in it, and I keep vanity googling myself, which is a terrible thing to admit. But yeah, it's going pretty well, and it's still number 25 on the hottest titles on Drive-Thru RPG as we speak. But I've just checked because so that's just amazing to me that it's still way up there on the list even after it's been out since August last year, I think. So it's been hanging here for a while now. But I can't take most of the credit for that. I think mostly it's the name of Evil Hat, which has given it most of its popularity. I mean, I keep trying really hard not to compare it to the other Fate Worlds that are coming out, because you can't tell what it is that has maybe given it a bit more staying power than some of the others, whether it's just the subject matter or because it was the earliest, or I don't know. But it's certainly a very special feeling, and it was also nominated for I can't remember the Golden Geek Award. That was it.
That's right, and those just wrapped up a little bit ago, right?
Yes, it was just in the last month. It didn't win, but I was up against some very stiff competition, and it was...
But to be nominated is just as good, really.
Yeah, it's certainly a bit of a heady feeling. I've been sort of floating around on a cloud, really, as far as all this is concerned, for the last few months. So.
All right, and so what are your plans for the future? I know you just had a fairly successful Kickstarter end about a month ago.
That's right. I've been one of the first things I did after we wrapped Secrets of Cats is write an expansion for it, which is called Animals and Threats, because a lot of the things that people said they would like to see is more animals and more supernatural bad guys for the game, and obviously I had a very limited amount of words I could use in the original book. So I finished writing that, I pitched it to Evil Hat, and they said, yeah, sure, we're interested in publishing this, but it's going to be quite a long way down the line because we've got so much on at the minute and lots of Fate Worlds and so on and so forth. So they said it could well be more than a year, but if you want to take it forward earlier than that with a Kickstarter or fund it yourself or whatever, we'll give you our blessing to do that. And yeah, they've been very supportive all through the process of kickstarting this and getting ready. They've advertised it for me and helped out with a few rules questions and given feedback and the like, which is really good. So yeah, it's a 10,000 odd word book which adds a bunch of interesting animals, including foxes and dogs and monsters, including zombies and vampires and other stuff for people to use in their games, with a fairly robust series of modular powers and stunts which can be used for that supernatural game you were just talking about. So that's really exciting. And I have a third book planned for it in the not too distant future, depending on how this one goes, which will be the final volume in the Secrets of Cats trilogy, if you like, and that's going to be another book on magic powers for cats. So additional schools of magic and other funky stuff like that.
Oh, awesome! Sounds like there's lots and lots of cool stuff coming down the pipeline. And well, let's we're coming up on the end here, so let's talk about what are you playing? What are you playing outside of Secrets of Cats? Or are you just playing Secrets of Cats? Or
actually, I'm not playing Secrets of Cats. I did some playtesting of it back at the beginning when I was first writing it, but I've not played it since, really. I have got some plans to run a few games with some friends and family in the near future, but mostly at the moment I'm running Dresden Files. I have a weekly game of Dresden Files with about 8 or 9 players. I keep forgetting how many I've got exactly. which is kind of wacky.
Sounds like madness.
Yeah, it's a lot of players, but it gives me a bit of robustness. If one or two of them can't make a session, it means I can carry on with. I like to have fairly large groups because it gives you a more dynamic feeling to the game. And on Wednesdays, I'm running a homebrew Fate core game called Lost Magic, which is sort of semi-exalted-y Magitech and stuff in a fantasy world we created ourselves. That's a lot of fun.
Well, all right. Well, was there anything else you wanted to talk about as far as gaming goes or Fate related?
No, not really, except to say that, thank you for having me on, and a big shout out to Evil Hat, who made all this possible and who I owe a lot to. So thank you very much to Fred Hicks and Leonard Bowser and everybody else on the team.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on our show, and thanks for watching our show. If you enjoyed it, please like us on YouTube and iTunes. Please leave a comment, let us know what you think, and let other people know that our show is not bad. Again, thanks again to Richard Bellingham for joining us tonight, or this afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. And be sure to check out his game. It's on DriveThruRPG. It's also at the Evil Hat website.
And
where
in
you
stores.
Can order the physical copy. And that's the only place you can order the physical copy, right?
It's out in stores as well.
Okay.
There are copies floating around in your friendly local gaming store. So.
All right, so check out those, and if they're not there, complain and rant and kick your feet, and get some more Fate games into your stores. All right, I'm Jake, and this has been Fate Point.